It's been probably 1980 I moved here to manage the Arkansas Western Gas Company office in downtown Prairie Grove. Born in Springfield, Missouri, and moved to Springdale. My dad drove a truck for Jones Truck Lines, and that's what brought us to Springdale. And I pretty much grew up there and hadn't moved anywhere else. And so just the moving was different. And my son was about 1 year old, and so we were moving a little ways away from family, but not far. But so it was a change, but it turned out to be a very good change because the people of Prairie Grove welcome us, and we've made some very good friends. And the company actually tried to transfer me to manage the offices in Bentonville and Rogers, and I couldn't leave. We enjoyed it here too much, so I stayed in Prairie Grove. I think we had probably less than 2,500 people when I first came here, and it was just a small, quiet town. And a lot of the folks that lived here, that's the way they wanted it to stay, was small. Because I remember the airport, the one that's in Heifel now, they were looking for a location, and we actually had a location out here they were looking at between Prairie Grove and Lincoln because of its height and less problems with fog and such, is what they said. But we had a meeting over in the phone company, and I remember there was a lot of folks after they came out here said, we don't want that, we don't want to grow, we want to stay right where we're at, and such as that. So there was a lot of talk about that, but folks liked the small town, and it stayed that way for a while. But the secret gets out, and the growing, I mean, we're growing at a pretty rapid pace right now, but we hear all the time where folks come through Prairie Grove. They may be visiting and they want to come back and retire here. They may be looking for a place to live, and they just fall in love with Prairie Grove. And so you can't, like I say, you can't keep that a secret forever. And so the growth is just happening. Being the manager of the gas company, we always get involved with civic stuff. So I had been president of the Chamber of Commerce, president of the Lions Club. I was also president of the Kiwanis Club in Lincoln. So we, did all that. But the city council came along when there was a vacancy, and I actually had one of the police officers from Prairie Grove come and talk to me because I was working part-time for the Springdale Police Department and had worked for them for 10 years. And he said, I want you to go talk to the mayor. He said, we would love to have somebody with law enforcement experience on the council. So I did, and I went and talked to the mayor, and she wanted me to fill that position. And so I got appointed to a council seat and got put on the police committee. And oh gosh, it had been like 1992, I believe, was I believe the year that is when I first started as a council member. The house that I live in right now was a subdivision that was built back in the 80s, and early 70s, I believe it was, and it just kind of sat there. There was like a half a dozen houses in there, and most of the folks who lived in those houses came to the Magnatech Universal factory that went in, and there was just a lot of open lots, and it actually got taken up by one of the first federal banks, and that's how we got our lot at a very good price. They auctioned off the lots out there, and we built and still are there. And so it was just kind of slow. I mean, it was like that was probably the first big subdivision that had been built in many years, and it just wasn't filling up very fast. And but it was later on, well, when we used to have all the subdivisions and such built, and I'm not sure exactly what year that was, but you know, around the 2000s, somewhere, anyway, the big blow up where everybody was building subdivisions all over. And that kind of came out this way, and the Sundowner and several of those subdivisions got put in, and they were still putting in subdivisions until we put a stop to it, because we had the old sewer plant and was trying to get a new sewer plant and trying to get all that through and get the money, stimulus funds and grants and all that. And we finally started to have to tell those folks, said, you know, until we know we can get this sewer plant built, we're not going to let any more subdivisions come in beyond what capacity we have in the old one. And so that's what we did, which we saved a lot of banks and a few folks some bad times, because those are the ones who didn't lose anything during that time, because most everything else went back to the banks. And but as soon as we got the sewer plant built, of course there wasn't much going on there for a while until now. And of course everybody knows how that's going right now. They're building as fast as they can. So I had no intention to become mayor. At the time I was quite satisfied with being alderman, and so this would have been back in around 2000, probably when Dr. Andrew Bain was mayor and built a house outside the city limits. And so that opened a vacancy as mayor, so we had to have a special election. And we appointed Homer Dalrymple as an interim mayor until we got that election. We had a former mayor and 2 aldermen that were running for that position, and I thought that would be fine. But actually, one of them actually made a remark that if he became mayor, he was going to line the council out, and things were going to be done his way, and a few things, and we had always got along fairly good as a council, and I always felt like that was a team deal. And something kind of got to me on that, like, this is not going to be good, and we may not get along if this happens. So that's when I threw my hat in. I thought, well, maybe I need to consider this. So I did, and I won that election and became mayor in 2001. And we have had a mayor-council relationship that has always been good since then, because I respect their position, they respect my position, and we all just work really well together. And I have seen, other cities that have had a lot of media and bad publicity, and a lot of that's just because they don't like each other. And so we try not to have that here in Prairie Grove, and we've done a very good job of doing that. And so, among a lot of other things, that's one of the things I like to do or proud of, is that we just work well together. We don't try to wait until something goes wrong and then try to fix it or put it off as long as you can. We try to stay ahead of the game. And that is just one piece of that. But we're also very proud of the fact that we are kind of pretty much self-sufficient. We do have our own water. We pick up our own trash. We have our own sewer plant. We do everything here in Prairie Grove. We don't have to, go looking for it out somewhere else. Now, when the 2-ton water system went in and was coming this direction, we had our own water source, but we also seen, that is a second source of water. It's good for everybody else. We need to try to help not only our other towns that need that, but look at that as a future, something that we may or may not need, but it's a backup. So we went ahead and tied into the 2-ton system. And over the years, our system has aged and needed some work. So we just went to the council and said, okay, do we go to the one source and depend it on that? Or do we spend the money and get this upgraded and keep it and still have our own source of water and also keep a second source of water? So, and the council agreed that we need to keep that source of water. It's very valuable. It's very good for the citizens to know that the chances of losing water in town if something goes wrong is very little, because if there's something goes wrong out there and we need to shut that down, we just bring it from the other end of town. Or if something is wrong with 2-ton or whatever, we still have our city source of water, and it's good for fire protection and all that. So yeah, well, the sewer plant was one, getting very old, and there was a lot of talk about phosphorus rates and all that. And we knew that we needed to upgrade for that, for the future. We didn't know exactly what it was going to bring, but we knew they were going to be more strict. So we got to talking about that, and that was also the time we started having some growth. And with the subdivisions we had, we figured out we had enough capacity to just about handle what we got. And as I mentioned earlier, that's the reason we decided not to take on any more subdivisions, because we were not going to take on more than what the max would be without knowing that we could complete that. So we went to work on that, and at that time there was some grants, but there was also that stimulus money that came out at that time, and we were able to utilize that. So we got quite a bit of the stimulus money, grant money, low interest money, and put all that together to help us pay for that and help not put as much burden on the ratepayers to do that. And so we built a new plant that was a lot more advanced than what we had, and we also built it to not only increase our capacity for the future, which will happen now that these subdivisions are filling up. There's already talk about new subdivisions, which will be more capacity than we would have had. So that's there, and then we also built it for further in the future to where it'll be easy and less expensive to even upgrade it more and have more capacity. We were very fortunate. I think we knew we needed newer facilities. Our old city hall was in an old block building, court building, and the police department. That was actually a hatchery many years ago. It was a gas station. It was also a shop, and you can sit at the one stop occasionally and get the right group in there, and they'll tell you how they used to build drag race cars in what we used to be our district court. And they would actually burn rubber from one end of the building to the other inside to try to keep them getting out and getting a ticket or something. But anyway, there's some really good stories about those old buildings and what they used to be. But we got a lot of good use out of them, but we were needing to grow. The court was just busting at the seams. Police department didn't have any room, and again, we were the city hall. My offices and public works director and water department was in an old building that was just damp and just was not meant to be an office. So one of the board members from the Bank of Fayetteville came in one day and talked to the public works director and said, I don't know exact words, but something to the effect, we got an offer you can't refuse type thing, So he came to me and we got to talking about it, and They made us a very good offer on the building that we're in now, which also had a building behind that had 4 offices in it. And we came out, and my first thought was, this ain't gonna work for a district court, police department, city hall. But I came out and looked at this building that I had been in several times. But I looked at it, hey, this could be a city hall. I mean, the front of it, the white post, the looks of it was kind of an attractive building and looked like something could be a city hall. So that was great. So, and then the other thing I was worried about was the measurement of the sizes of the others. And so we just did some measuring of the offices and such, and thought, well, this is a step up from where we were at. More space, a lot newer building, and attractive, and still in a good location. We wanted to stay as close to downtown as we could. So with getting a good offer and a good loan for the balance, a good interest rate, and the bank that had this actually, carried the loan, and we paid a good amount down. We were actually able to move in here and make. We had, I think, a 5-year loan is all we can get as a municipality, and we actually paid it off early. So we're in our city hall now, and the water department and district court offices, police department, and the one suite that we didn't use, we have now got it converted into a training room. So we can do some training and some meetings and such in there, so, which is very nice, and it's all paid for. And so, and then of course the story goes on, is the maintenance facility it was also in, it was very old, very small, right across from our old water department. And the yard was just full, and I think there was 3 or 4 garage doors on a very a small building that used to be a mechanic shop. And the person who owned a building out in the industrial park, the old woodworking building, Gary Doss, came in the door one day and said, y'all have any idea who might be interested in that place? And so again, I sat down with him and we talked, and I made him an offer and said, will you take this much down and finance this much interest-free for 4 years? And he said, yeah. And so we did that, and we've got it probably halfway paid off. But we went from a small corner lot downtown to 5 acres, a large, I don't remember the exact square footage, but a large building with 2 outbuildings on that. And so it's just been wonderful. But we've been very fortunate that these things have kind of come to us, and we've been able to take advantage of them and move into buildings at less than half the cost of what it would have cost the city to try to build these. And so those are great, and we're very happy with all that. Pools have been talked about forever in Prairie Grove, off and on, that I found out. And occasionally we would have somebody come in and why does the Prairie Grove not have a pool? And when I was an alderman, I was also a chairman of the Parks and Recreation Committee. And so we would talk and look into that, and I would find people such as Delford Reef that would say, oh, we've looked at that many times in the past. Pools are just too expensive. They just drain your funds. It's one thing to build them, but then you got to maintain them. And so those things that we took into consideration, and time went on, and we looked at it and then would kind of go away from it and look at it again. And finally, the aquatic centers became kind of a popular way to go. And also, to back up just a little bit, in trying to give our kids something to do in the summertime, we were actually busing some of our kids to other towns that had pools so they could go swimming, and which made us more, think about how we'd like to have something here for them. And then we had other activities for them, tennis. We'd get people to volunteer to do tennis, art, all kinds of stuff during the summertime. So anyway, we got to looking at the aquatic center, and we actually did a little bit of traveling in Siloam, which is the closest one around here, the first one, and talked to them, and we found out that the income from an aquatic center, without something major breaking down in some of these other places, were actually covering the expenses. They were making a lot more at the gate. Pools was just not bringing in the large amount of people. And so I actually took pictures. Me and Larry went to Siloam and looked at that. I took several pictures. I took a board and put all the pictures on there and took them to the different clubs, the Chamber and Lions Club. And I'll still remember Delford Reef. He was sitting at the table eating, and of course, as I mentioned, one of the people who knew how hard it was to get a pool and what it would cost. So I started explaining the aquatic center aspect to it and what we had found out, and that the income from the gate was way more than what a swimming pool would bring in to help with maintenance, and that our plan was to have to go to the voters for a 3/4 cent sales tax to build it. And then the thing that I was avid about, again thinking about some of the things that Delford had said about the maintenance, is that if we're going to do this, we're going to ask for some of that, after we get it built, that 3/4 of that, I believe, or 1/4%, stay on from now on to go in for maintenance. So we could have a little bit of money being built up. So we have, one of the big pump motors go out, or like we've had to do here in the last few years, the slides rust out, and it may be a $30,000 ticket to either get those things redone or replaced, and or you get a leak in the pool, so you can have a $25,000, $30,000 item just anytime, you don't know. So we did that, and as I was talking to the Lions Club about that, I noticed Delford Reef was getting more and more interested. And his chair was kind of facing his table, and then by the time I was through, he was facing me. He just kind of kept turning his chair, and so it wasn't long after that Delford Reef wrote us a $100,000 check to go toward the aquatic center and the ball fields over there, because he believed what we were doing was the right thing to do, and he believed that we'd figured out a way to do it and not make a burden on the taxpayers or the city funds. So we got his attention, and so that's the reason it's named after Delford Reef. And then we got grants and such, and went ahead and finished it up, and it's been wonderful for the city and a place for the kids to go and play ball and swim, and we have folks come from all around to our aquatic center. So it's been a real good deal for us. I guess Magna-Tech Universal was here when I came here, and of course it wasn't very long after that it went out, so it was empty for a while until especially Fasteners came from Fayetteville and moved into it. So that's been a great thing for us, and they do a great job because they are kind of tied into building, and when the building went down and all the house building kind of quit for a long time, they were able to stay going and stay in business, and less shifts, but they never stopped, they never closed down. And now, they're thriving again and adding folks, so that's been great. And then course, Magnatech, or the Arkansas Galvanizing and all that. Of course, Bill Ramsey was big in bringing that industrial park in, and Arkansas Galvanizing in, and then the plastic company out there. And it's changed hands since the first one out there, but it's growing and they're thriving and they're wanting to add on. And so it's still going real good. We did lose the Bitworks. Company bought them out, and they just thought they needed to be closer to 49 Highway, and so we kind of hated that, but there's still wind and solar in that building, so there is something going on. And then of course we had the wood factory out there. They made wood whistles and such that we are now have taken that over, and then of course the phone company put their new warehouse and all that out there. So it's pretty much full, and everything has got someone in it. So I guess you can't ask for any more than that until something else comes along. But right now we're mainly waiting for some of our other businesses to come along that keep talking about coming out here. We get calls from Casey's and McDonald's and all those folks for many years talking about coming out. Some of them kind of backed off when they heard we were going to have the bypass. But the bypass has actually been in now for several years. And so we don't know exactly when all that's going on, but we do know the bank's moving across the road from us, and one of the restaurants downtown has bought lots over here. They plan on moving out here, and we've got another dentist that's bought a lot down here by the Farm Credit, and so there's a lot of potential like that, and those type of businesses help you with your sales tax income, which is very good to help with police and fire and all that type of stuff. The school is excellent, and it has a very good reputation, and it has always had good people working there. They've always had good administrators, and as they do right now, and it's growing, and it also helps us as a city because, as I had said earlier, you know, folks come through Prairie Grove and they're looking for a place to live, and they look at Prairie Grove. But what I failed to mention to say earlier is the schools, in some cases, is what they're looking at too if they're a younger family. We have a lot of folks that retire here that may not, but a lot of folks have kids, and that's another thing that we will hear occasionally is that we like the town and we like the school system. We have come a long way. Our police department, our fire department, they're just top notch. And J.C. Dobbs has got the fire department. It's second to none. And Chris Workman in the police department. We have got a fleet of cars that again that look great and something we can be proud of. And we have Central EMS, and that was another big challenge we had at one time of the possibility of losing our ambulance service, and we needed to make that a regional deal because it wasn't being able to survive as a private entity. And so it took a long time, a lot of meetings that we went to, because I was on the board. I was put on the board many years ago by Jerry Hunton when he was the county judge. And so we worked on that very hard, and now that is a regional ambulance service, which takes care of all of Washington County, except for Springdale. They have their own ambulance service within their fire department. People talk about, you get phone calls in this business a lot. And, people complained about stuff. And I say, yeah, you get a lot of that, but not as much as you'd think, because folks in Prairie Grove like to talk face to face. And people ask me, why do you go to the coffee shop and why do you do this and that? Just so people can, jump you about stuff. And I said, because that's the way we are. they won't call you, but they'll catch you at the grocery store, they'll catch you at the coffee shop, and that's when they want to find out about stuff, and that's when they want to let you know what's going on, and ask you questions. And I said, that's the reason I put myself out there, because a lot of times complaints sometimes is just, they just want to know the facts, and usually there's not ever a problem. It's just things are misunderstood. So I want to put myself out there. So one thing is I can answer their questions and get it taken care of, or you can find out what's going on, what's being talked about, and say, wait a minute, that's not right. This is the way it is. And so it makes everybody happy, because usually it's all good. Talk just sometimes gets, there's things that gets going out there is not right. So, but to try to answer your questions, just the people, that's the kind of people they are. They want to see you, and they want to talk to you. They don't want to call and talk to you and make a complaint over the phone. So we've just got a lot of great people who are concerned about the city, and they want to talk to you face to face and take care of it. So I think even people who've lived there all their life sometimes can go to the coffee shop and find out something that they didn't know, something that happened that they didn't know. But it can be very, very interesting, very, very interesting, and very, like I said, just history. Occasionally they just get back on the stuff that happened a long, long time ago, and you can get, you just don't want, you don't want to stop. It gets so interesting, you just want to keep going.